Welcome to the Puck and Pigskin Podcast, presented by Belly Up Sports. Just great sports fans talking mostly about hockey and football, sprinkled with a bit of everything else. Now, here's your host, a Flames fan with a Golden Knights backup plan, Jason Bizik.
All right, joining me from St. Louis are the two hosts of Two Drunk Brothers and a Podcast, Jeritt and Travis Rion. How you doing, guys?
Doing good. How are you?
I am doing excellent. Jeritt, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain. Excited to talk some betting with you guys and hoping to teach everyone a thing or two and hopefully win some money. So.
Yeah, so sports betting has something that I've always kind of kept my eye on, although I've always been too chicken shit to dive into it, mostly because I have no idea what I'm doing and no idea where to begin. So why don't we start there? And so somebody who's never dabbled in sports betting before, where would somebody like me even begin? Travis, let's go with you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really tough because I know there's a lot of limitations just based on your state. So kind of what I did. Actually, I'll just go into a very brief story. Me and Jeritt's 4 years older than me. We lived together when I moved to college, and one of our roommates kind of bet on sports, and me being a young 18-year-old guy, I was like, oh, I want to get into this and kind of make some money. So signed up on an online site. There's plenty of them. You got MyBookie, Bovada, all those types of things that you can go on. So just, creating an account. It's free. Log on, put some money on and get going. Whether you want to, it just depends what size your bankroll is. If you're not comfortable wagering a lot of money, you start with like $5-10 bets and you can go up from there.
Mm-hmm. So, Jeritt, one thing that I've always wondered is what kind of factors go into the numbers that we see when we look at a sports betting line? Like, I'm sure the numbers change all the time. Is that correct?
Oh, they change constantly. And it all comes from the fabulous city of Las Vegas, Nevada. They kind of control everything. I mean, there's literally people who have a career dedicated to determining what the lines are going to be for games, depending on injuries, last-minute things that happen, if the public is hammering one side of the line. So a line could open up and, the home, like let's say, for instance, like Thursday night, the Bucks are 8-point favorites against the Cowboys. If the public starts hammering the Bucks, that line's going to go from 8 to 8.5 to 9 to 9.5 until the public starts to lay off of it because Vegas doesn't want to lose their butts on it. So there's a lot of things that go into it, mostly how the public's betting, injuries, COVID. That's a big thing to do with betting, but a lot of different factors. People are constantly watching the news and updates in real time to determine what the line should be in any given game. So.
Okay, and back to Travis. Why is it this seems obvious to me, but why is Vegas control a lot of the betting? Is there something to that, or just because Vegas is the gambling town?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I think that's probably, the main reason for it is like sports books and casinos kind of made their way in Vegas, and that's where honestly a large portion of the volume of bets and the money being put in and bet on these games is in Vegas. So I'm not sure if anyone's ever watched a UFC fight, they'll show up like tweets and live updates on the ticker down at the bottom. Like this much was just wagered at, MGM or all like another big casino or sportsbook in Vegas. So having all this money in Vegas, it's easier to determine where to start the odds and where to move the lines because that's where majority of the money is being bet on.
Yeah, and so we've already kind of heard how Travis got into the betting. Jeritt, how about you? How did you get into the sports wagering and betting?
Well, seriously, it was basically Travis. I mean, I had dabbled in it before. Like Travis said, we had roommates in college. Like I said, I'm 4 years older than Travis. So just being in a college atmosphere environment, like I had a roommate of mine who was in a fraternity at one point in time. And we all know every fraternity has their designated sportsbook guy, whether it's legal or not. It's done on every college campus across the country. So I mean, I really got into it in college, kind of took some time off. And then once we started the podcast, like I really dove into it full time to the point now where Travis and I probably Travis, like what we probably this year alone, we've probably put out over 2,000 picks. It's kind of wild how in depth you can go into it across different sports. So I got into it in college and really dove deep into it in the podcast. And I mean, like Travis said, whether you're gambling $5, $10, $50, $100, it doesn't really matter. That's why we talk in units on our podcast. So, we say, hey, we're going to put 2 units on this game, and a unit could be different to everybody. A unit for me is like $20, $30. A unit to you could be $5, $10. It just kind of varies across the board. So not try to, bet shame in that regard, but that's kind of how I got into it, is really college and through Travis and the podcast.
All right. I think you were kind of breaking up there a little bit, but you seem to be back now. You mentioned as people are hitting a certain team, the numbers change a lot. One thing that I kind of recently got into looking at was a new company called Symbol. I don't know if you guys have heard of Symbol, and how they kind of it's like the stock market. It's kind of like buying stocks, except what you're buying is you're buying team stock, so to speak. So you put your money in, you fund your account, of course, and you buy a certain amount of stock. You're like, for instance, Tampa Bay would have a high price because they're a good team. So basically you buy units of the Tampa Bay team, and as they win and stuff, the stock goes up, and as they lose, it goes down. And really something kind of interesting that I found. Now here in Canada, I don't know if it's actually become legalized yet, but single game betting is becoming or has become legalized in Canada now. So that's something that I'm really interested in, where you can make bets on who's going to start a game, who's going to have, the most shots in a game, all that kind of stuff. Is that something that you guys also dabble in down there?
You talk about hockey?
Yeah, hockey. I think football as well up here. The
Okay.
CFL hockey. I think baseball as well, as far as I know. I haven't looked into it a whole lot yet because it's new. And or are you guys just mostly picking wins, losses, and spread, that kind of thing?
So we're kind of all over the board. We'll do whatever we like. I mean, it's kind of an endless just hole of how many things you can bet on in the game. Like, it really is. This year, something that we never really got into, like right now, baseball season, a big thing that we've been betting on is strikeout props, which, for those of you who know, props is like a certain player to have a certain amount of like yards, strikeouts, hits, blah, 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 blah. So like what we've been doing this year is taking a pitcher's strikeout number, whether it be 4.5, 3.5, 5.5, and taking the over under on that based on what we find. So we can do that. We can do the same thing for football on a player's receiving yards or touchdowns or passing yards. So really, I mean, we do it all. Whatever we see there's an advantage on, we try to hop on, because that line can move pretty quick once people get the notion that it's a line that you can take advantage of.
Okay, yeah, that kind of sounds like what I was trying to explain. As you can tell, I have not been in the betting game. I don't know all the terms and the procedures, so that sounds a lot closer to what I was trying to explain. So let's go through some of the terms that people would come across in sports betting. I always hear the word parlay coming up. Explain to me what a parlay is.
I'll take this one. So a parlay is whenever you, I guess, Travis and now parlays, I will tell you this, big value in parlays, they can get you in a lot of trouble. And Travis will attest to that.
Yeah, they are not good to a certain extent, because if you're down and you're chasing money, because parlays are all about making more money, you can certainly lose your ass on parlays for sure.
Yeah. But basically what a parlay is you pick whatever it is. It's got to be two or more bets, and you couple them all together, and all of those bets have to hit for you to win. So let's say, for instance, I'm just looking at the primetime games for the NFL this week. If I wanted to bet on the Bucks, the Rams, and the Ravens to win all money line, not spread, but because you can do money line, just basically them to win. You parlay all three of those together. If the Bucks, the Rams, and the Ravens all win, you win your bet. So that's basically what a parlay is. You're picking two or more bets all coupled together, and if all of them hit, you win. So that's why you get you can do crazy 6 to 7 or 8 game or 8 leg parlays where the more you add, the more the values go up.
Yeah, it's a huge multiplier. Essentially, is what it is. So if you put two teams in it that are a decent favorite, it'll make it at almost like an even return or around an even return on your investment. But if you have a 6-team parlay where you have 6 different teams in there to win, you can put in let's just say for $10 to win $50 or $60, something like that. So it's basically like a multiplier. But again, they're very tough to do and they're very tough to hit, and they can get you in a lot of trouble if you're trying to chase some bets that you just lost.
Yeah, so if I were to put $100 down on a 3-game parlay, now if I lose, I'm only losing my $100, right? I'm not losing anything extra besides the $100 that I'm placing, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So a lot of times, we'll see some, for example, St. Louis, 1.30 or whatever, on a betting line. Explain to me what that 1.30 would mean in that line.
You mean minus 130?
I'm assuming that would be the multiplier. Yeah.
So if it's based really anything, so minus 130 would be a money line play. So what that means is that straight up to win. So minus 130 would typically mean that they're a favorite. So you're going to get a little bit less of return on what you bet on. So if you bet $10, you're going to win a little bit less than 10. And that's just kind of how it works. And then now there's also in hockey, there's puck line, which would be minus 1.5. So that'd be a team to win by 2 goals. Generally, you're going to get a lot more value on that rather than just a win, which would be a money line, because their money line is going to be a lot higher. And they do the same thing in baseball as well. They do run lines, which is a team to win by minus 1.5, so 2 runs or more. So you get a lot more value on those. But then again, there's a lot that can come into factor on those, like a closer blowing the game in baseball or an empty netter in hockey that can kind of screw you on that. So, but that's kind of the deal on that. And then anything plus odds. So if you see like a plus 110 or plus 120, you're going to get a higher return on your investment. So if you see plus 130, you'll bet $10 to win to profit $13. So you're going to get more money back on your initial investment.
So that number is kind of a multiplier then.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One thing, another common thing I always see is betting on the over under, and kind of explain how that works to someone who wouldn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll jump in here because I kind of got screwed on the over-under last night in the Louisville-Ole Miss game. So the Louisville-Ole Miss game in college football last night was 74.5. So basically, you look at that, you're just looking at the total number of points, runs, goals, whatever it is in that game. So in hockey, we'll see a lot of the times it's over-under 5.5 goals. So basically, as long as both teams combined score over 5.5 goals, you win your bet. So last night in college football, it was 74.5, and I bet the over. And, both teams came out. Well, Ole Miss came out hot, and Louisville kind of laid an egg. And I'm like, all right, this bet's dead in the water. Well, then in the second half, they got hot and started heating up, scoring a bunch of points in the fourth quarter. I ended up losing by a touchdown, but basically you're just betting on the total amount of points, goals, runs, whatever is in the game. So that's what you're betting on. And most times over-unders are the same odds. Whether you bet the over or the under, it's going to be minus 110, which is – like Travis said, you bet $10, you're going to win a little less than 10.
And we do a lot less on over-unders because in our minds, especially in mine, I'm speaking for both of us when I say this, but it's kind of a crapshoot because you really never know. You could have a good defense in football or even hockey, a good goalie, let up a lot of goals when you bet the under. or a lot of points in football and you bet the under. So we try to stay away from that a little bit unless it's like a really favorable number that we just can't avoid.
All right. Yeah. And one final term that I'll get you to kind of explain is the spread. I see that a lot, a team covering the spread. So just kind of explain what that is.
Yeah. Travis, you want me to take a stab at this, or do you got it?
I'll go ahead and cover it since you covered the over under. Yeah, so a spread essentially, so both it's on each side. So you can cover the spread as a favorite, you can cover the spread as an underdog. So again, let's talk about. We'll just take in, for instance, the next game that's going to happen, which is the Tampa Bay Bucks and Cowboys game on Thursday. We talked about this on our podcast that we recorded tonight. Tampa Bay is an 8-point favorite on Thursday. So for them to cover the spread, they'd have to win by 9 points. They have to win. Can't win by anything less than that, but they can win by 9 or more. Now, for Dallas to cover, they can lose, since it's 8, they can lose by 7 or less, or even win to cover their spread. Now, anything in between, say Tampa Bay wins by 8, that's considered a push, and both sides get their money back. Cowboys bettors get their money back. Bucks bettors get their money back. And then anything that's like a half, so like a 7.5, 6.5, those bets can't push, so it just goes up. So if it were to go to 8.5, anything 9 and up for the Bucks wins. Anything 8 and under wins for the Cowboys.
All right. Yeah, that's I've always wondered how that works actually, because that's one term, like I said, I hear a lot is the spread. One thing happening up here in Canada, and this goes back to the single game betting coming into effect, is in the CFL, which is the Canadian Football League. Teams are to have rosters submitted before game time, obviously. So big controversy now is one of the teams up here in Canada, the BC Lions. They list the starting quarterback for the first 2 weeks of the season and actually played the other quarterback on the roster. So a lot of controversy there, because had people been able to bet on those games, and if you're starting your veteran starter, people are probably going to bet on the BC Lions to win, and they start the backup guy. So that became a hot topic here. What's happening down there as far as controversy? Any big controversies happening in the sports betting world that you can remember?
Yeah, kind of. I'm not really sports betting, but it could kind of go as far as DFS would be last year with Taysom Hill being listed as a tight end on a lot of sports sites, whether it be DFS or fantasy or whatever, and then being able to be played, or he was starting as a quarterback, but being able to be played in the tight end spot because that's what he was.
Yeah, that was a big one too. And I would also say like teams who, like a lot of teams that play their cards close to their chest, your Patriots, your Saints, there's a few other teams in the league that do it, who don't like convey all the details to the media and kind of keep, like I said, keep their cards close to their chest. And you'll find out come game day or 5 minutes before kickoff, if you already placed your bets, that a star wide receiver is not going to play that game, or a quarterback's not going to play that game. And that really kind of screws up your spread or your bet. And you get a little ticked off because you're like, hey, man, like I bet on the fact that you said this guy is going to play. Your Bill Belichick's, your Sean Paytons do that stuff all the time. I see you're wearing a Raiders hat. John Gruden's guilty of that as well. So, just coaches kind of holding their cards close to their chest can also screw up your bets as well. Very similar to that BC Lions situation that you just talked about. So,
and in baseball, a lot of there's some bets where you could do that are based on starting pitchers. So you could make a bet where, and you can include it in kind of like a little clause where both of the pitchers that are supposed to start have to start in that game for the bet to count. And if one gets scratched or one gets pulled, then the bet's void. So that's kind of saves you, but that's really the only sport that I know of that does that.
Oh, okay. That's actually a great idea. Although it's, that's why they call it gambling, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Never a sure thing.
So Jared, what's your favorite sport to gamble on, would you say, or to bet on?
Man, it's got to be football. Without a doubt, particularly NFL. Like college football is really. Travis and I talked about it. Like last week was college football. It's kind of a crapshoot. We didn't do great. We didn't do terrible. But NFL is by far my favorite sport to bet on, especially come Super Bowl time. Because Super Bowl, there's so many things you can bet on. You can bet on the color of the Gatorade that's going to be dumped on the winning coach. You can bet on the coin toss. You can bet on how long the national anthem is going to last. So football is without a doubt the best sport to bet on for sure.
And Travis, how about you? What's your favorite?
I would agree for that to a certain extent, just because of the fact that we have been we've always been against betting on baseball, because we said anything can happen on any given day, which I know that's the case for every sport, including football. But with baseball, it's kind of different because it's just so many factors going into one. And with how hot we've been, on baseball and betting on pitchers, strikeout rates and props and things like that, it's been kind of hard to lay off. But ultimately, I'd have to say football as well, just because it's just probably one of the easiest and most fun sports to watch.
So, if you would you be willing to disclose what your biggest win was?
Yeah,
biggest win.
Got it. It was last year in the Super Bowl.
You think so?
Well, I put a future. Well, I don't know. Honestly, probably UFC parlays have been my biggest wins.
I was going to say.
Yeah.
My biggest win would have been off of a parlay I did a couple years ago during baseball season. It's just a 5-team parlay, super low risk, high reward. Plus, I think it's plus 3,500 odds. So it was just a $10 bet to win $350, and I think Jeritt's was right around the same.
Yeah, mine's the same thing. Mine was a UFC parlay. It was a Stipe Miocic card. He was facing Daniel Cormier for the second time. So I had 3 or 4 fights on that card. Stipe was almost plus 400 dog, and I threw in 3 favorites and Stipe as an underdog. And all 4 legs hit, and I think it was right around $300-400 that I won off a $10-15 bet. So,
wow, that's not bad.
But they don't always happen that way. We've lost a lot more money on parlays than we won. I promise you that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's go the other way then. What was your biggest loss?
Oof. Yeah, I think. I mean, I would say I think I've lost up to I've never gambled more than $150 on one game, and that's happened on multiple occasions. So I'd just say, I would say that one being on the not this past Super Bowl, but Super Bowl before, in which the 49ers kind of choked away their lead in the late third and fourth quarter, had lost to the Chiefs. So that one kind of hurt. That one still stays heavy with my heart.
Yeah, so that was my biggest loss too. I think I had $200 on Niners money line and $100 on their spread, and I think they squandered both of those away in that game because they were dogs. I think they were 3-point dogs, and they lost by I think what was a touchdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
it was brutal.
It was bad. I think I lost $300-400 that day. So that's Super Bowl, whatever the Niners and Chiefs was. That was my biggest loss that day. So in one single day.
So going back to where somebody would start in the betting industry or world, is there a favorite site that you guys like to use to find your lines, or are they all pretty much the same all across the board?
They actually differ quite a bit. Each site has different lines. The main one that we kind of use to get our lines, Jeritt uses Bovada a lot of the time, which is just an easy online site that everyone can access. I use DraftKings. We are right next to Illinois, and I work in downtown St. Louis, so I'm just a drive across the river away from being able to bet and look at the lines in Illinois, because you can do that in legal states. So really DraftKings is kind of one of my favorite sites, but lines definitely vary by book. Whatever one you use, you can get definitely better prices, significantly better prices on some more than others.
Well, even like, for instance, I was in Vegas a couple months ago, and I could go, like, I was staying at the Planet Hollywood, for instance, and I could walk from the Planet Hollywood Sportsbook over to the Bellagio Sportsbook, and they even had different odds there. Like 2 blocks away, they had different odds. So like Travis said, they can vary. If you're in a legal gambling state in the U.S., DraftKings is probably the better one that I would use. If you're not, then like Travis said, there's sites online you can use, mybookie.ag or bovada.lv. I prefer Bovada over mybookie, just because I think they're better at paying out and they have the best odds. So, as in terms of between mybookie and Bovada, so
Yeah. And as for up here in Canada, DraftKings, I think, is definitely probably the top one that's used up here. I see it advertised a lot. We're talking with Travis and Jeritt Rion from Two Drunk Brothers and a podcast about sports betting and gambling. And we're going to take a quick commercial break here. And when we come back, we're going to hit our new segment that we're going to be doing weekly, where the boys are going to give us a few picks to bet on. And hopefully you can turn that into some quick cash. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, I'm here to tell you about a new craft distillery in Calgary, Broken Spirits Distillery. These guys are making some amazing craft spirits and cocktails, from spiced sugar cane to different styles of gin. Broken Spirits are proud to be part of the Puck and Pigskin podcast and want to offer you 15% off your purchase, either in-house at the distillery or online at brokenspirits.ca. Punch in offer code BROTHERS15 to claim your discount. Go in for a cocktail and check them out. You won't be disappointed. Betting with the Brothers, brought to you by Broken Spirits Distillery in Calgary, Alberta. Save 15% off your purchase, either in-house at the distillery or online at brokenspirits.ca. Punch in offer code BROTHERS15 to claim your discount. Now, betting with the Brothers. All right, back with Jeritt and Travis Rion from Two Drunk Brothers and a podcast, talking about sports gambling and betting. And now we're going to go into a new segment that we're going to have weekly, where the boys are going to give us a few picks, and hopefully you can turn that into some cash. Travis, why don't we start with you? Why don't you give us a pick here and tell the people what they can look forward to this week?
Oh baby, we're just going. We're going any pick here.
Any pick.
Any pick,
preferably
whatever.
a good one that's going to win somebody some money.
All right. I know you said you aren't too big on it, but you mind if I hop into some college football here?
Go for it.
All right, so we're hopping into some college football. That would be this upcoming Saturday here in Central Time. In Missouri, it's at 3:30, so I'm not sure wherever that translates to you. You can do the math. That's up to you on this one. I'm drinking. That's not for me. But we have a number 10 ranked Iowa team going up against a number 9 ranked Iowa State team. This might honestly be my favorite pick of the week. And we have an underdog here at plus money, so that means you're going to get a higher value on your return. Iowa is a plus 170 favorite, so a $10 bet would pay out 17. A $100 bet would pay out 170. Iowa last week coming off of a huge win at home against a number 17 Indiana team, which they spanked 34-6. Meanwhile, Iowa State got off to a rough start at home against Northern Iowa, so a lot smaller of a school, barely squeaked out a 6-point win. So Iowa looks like the much sharper team heading into this weekend, going on the road, which really isn't even on the road because they're both in the same state, just right across town, basically. Little stone's throw across the pond. So I'm rolling with Iowa on this one. I think the value is 100% there, and this should be one of your top eyes if you're eyeing a pick for this weekend in college football.
All right, sounds good. Jeritt, why don't you throw one at us? What do you got?
All right, I'm going to stick with the theme here. The Two Drunk Brothers like to chase a lot of value here. I'm also going to go with a team that is an underdog, so you can get a lot of good value, a lot of good return on your investment here. I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins on the road against the Patriots on Sunday at 3:25 Central Time. The Dolphins are the underdogs at plus 145, and that's who I'm going to tail there. And maybe a little bit of homer pick for those who don't know. Yes, we do reside in St. Louis, but Travis and I are Dolphins fans because we had to adopt somebody after Stan Kroenke and the Rams left town. I think the media is hyping up Mac Jones a little too much. And if you look at any time Brian Flores, defensive mastermind, head coach of the Miami Dolphins, he's able to disguise blitzes and coverage schemes that really screws with a rookie quarterback's mindset. Just go watch the Dolphins-Chargers game from last season when he gave Justin Herbert fits in a game they ended up winning. I think the same thing's going to happen on Sunday with Mac Jones and the New England Patriots. So that's why I'm taking the Dolphins at plus 145. They're the underdogs. Again, like Travis said, $10 bets going to win you $14.50. $100 is going to win you $145. So some good value there.
All right, Travis, why don't you give us one more here?
All right, I'm gonna roll into one that you guys can take advantage of quicker than the others, and it's gonna be a Thursday, the Thursday night football game going on against the Cowboys and Bucks. So one that mostly everyone should be watching. So if not, you might as well drop a little cash on it. But it's gonna be a different one, something that you can hop right into because that's something me and Jeritt didn't do, and it is a prop on a certain player. And I am heading towards Scotty Miller, the receiver for the Buccaneers, to have over 8.5 receiving yards. This is super low for him. He is a big time receiver in terms of getting yardage per catch. So basically, this is just almost one reception for him. Will cover this. He went over this total of 8.5 yards in 10 of the last 16 regular season games last year, and you can get this at the odds of minus 110. So that will return about $9 on a $10 bet or $90 on a $100 bet. So that's one of the big ones I like heading into this weekend. And lucky for you, get it early on Thursday.
Yeah, 8.5 yards, like that does not seem like a hard number to attain at all with Tom Brady tossing the ball at you.
Yeah, straight from DraftKings that one came from. So there you go.
Wow. Jeritt, I'm actually going to put you on the spot, being that I'm a Raiders fan. What's the line on the Raiders Monday night against Baltimore?
Oh, you're not going to like it.
You're not going to like the pick. So the Ravens are 4-point favorites. The over-under, I think, is 56. Travis, am I right in that?
I couldn't tell you.
Doesn't matter because the pick here, I'm sorry, Jason. I hate to do this to you. I'm taking the Ravens. Actually, this is going to be my next pick. So it's funny that you put me on the spot here. I love the Ravens -4. I know they're going on the road against Vegas, but Baltimore. Now this is something we didn't talk about. Like when you look at betting, you look at teams. They actually get records. If you look at certain sites, you can look at the record against the spread. So how good they are at gambling wise. Well, The Ravens last year were 11-7 against the spread. I think that was third in the league. They were 4-3 against the spread on the road, 9-6 against the spread as a favorite. So that means when they're the favorite, they're going to cover 9 out of the 17 games. I honestly think Vegas is going to be one of those lower tier teams this year. No offense. And that Gruden style of coaching is a little bit dated. So I love the Ravens -4 to cover on the road against Vegas. Lamar Jackson and that offense is going to be a little too much for them to handle.
You just hurt Jason's feelings. So
I know. I'm sorry.
No. I think a lot of people are putting Vegas as underdogs this season. I'm going out on a limb. I'm going to say they're going to finish with 11 wins this season. They're going to make the playoffs. I'm going to say 11 wins. Yeah. You'll see in my Raiders report that I recorded last night, which will also drop in the same episode you guys are in. We talk about the Raiders and what our expectations are. So I think 11 wins are good. And I'll bet against them to beat Baltimore. Why not?
There you go.
Hopeful.
So if I'm placing, say, a $100 bet on Vegas to win, what am I winning?
A lot of money. Let's see. Let's go to draft. Travis, you got DraftKings pulled up?
Yeah, I can pop it open real quick. So you're saying on money line, so them to win straight up, right?
Yeah.
All right, so they're an underdog. I'm just gonna guess without looking at the line as a 4-point underdog. It's probably gonna be right around like 150 or so. Let's see how accurate I am. Plus 150. They are actually, scroll down here, a plus 175 favorite. So $100 will return you a profit of $175. Or actually, yeah. So there you go. That'll be the bet to make. If you're really confident in your Raiders, that's it.
So, as guys that have been doing this for a while, is betting with your heart versus betting with your head? What's the ratio there?
You never want to bet with your heart. We do it way
Never.
too much.
Yeah.
But the thing with us is, like, yes, obviously we want to win, but a lot of the time, what it is for us is cheap entertainment. So we can sit at home, we can bet on a game that we normally wouldn't really give two shits about. And now that we have money and we have a dog in the fight, it makes it way more interesting. So we bet with our hearts sometimes, but we're rarely going to steer you guys in the wrong way with our hearts. We're just going to do that on our own money.
Yeah.
So we hardly ever put those picks out to our listeners and to our guests. So we'll just lose our own money.
Yeah. You never bet with your heart, but I will say the one piece of betting advice that we always say is trust your gut. So when you look at a line, your first gut instinct, don't overanalyze it. If you're leaning one way, roll with it, and that's the play to go. So don't bet with your heart, bet with your gut.
Yeah, which a lot of the times is betting against your heart. If you have your own personal dog in the fight, aka Jason wants to take the Raiders on Monday night, you can't do that. You just can't. I won't let you.
All right. Well, this has been a great show, guys. Great chat and great education. I've certainly learned a lot and learned enough to, I think, maybe dabble a little bit. So we'll see what we can come up with for win.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And hey, you're only going to learn more from here on out. So we threw a lot at you, but more is coming.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to drop all your links in the description in the video, but tell everybody where we can find you and your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Two Drunk Brothers, Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, wherever. We basically give out picks every single week, kind of like this. We go in a full expanded card, talk about all the primetime games, college games, and then we also have a Patreon where we give out expanded picks every single weekend. So check that out if you feel so inclined. Two Drunk Brothers on the podcast, wherever you find us.
All right. Excellent. Well, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll see if I throw some money down on Vegas this week.
All right. Sounds good, Jason. Best of luck.
Talk to you next week.
Have a good night, guys. The Raiders Report, brought to you by Bass Pro Shops. Save 10% in-store pickup and ship to store. Use promo code STOREPICKUP. Now, the Raiders Report. All right, welcome back to the Puck and Pigskin podcast. New segment now we're trying out called Raiders Report. And hopefully joining me every week will be Joshua Arbuthnot. And Joshua, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really looking forward to getting to talk about the Raider Nation for you for this upcoming season. And next week I will be there live to see the silver and black in person. So very excited for this season and even more excited to talk to you, Jason.
Yeah, that's great that you're going to be there. I can't wait to go to a game there. It's going to be so good.
It's going to be very exciting. It's a lot of loopholes to go through, I can tell you, this weekend, talking to Alliance Stadium and being international traveler to the stadium. If you were going to do that this week, I would say, definitely plan ahead because there is a lot of things to get done if you are an international traveler before actually getting to the stadium in itself. So luckily we've kind of got our ducks in a row right now, so we're good to go.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And
Yeah.
I've said it before on this show. I'm a new Raiders fan. I just became a fan last year when they moved to Vegas because I love Las Vegas. I like the Knights, everything to do with Vegas. And so I'm a brand new Raiders fan. So I thought I'd bring you in since you're already a Raiders fan. You probably know a lot more than I do, and we can
I've been through it.
Yeah, yeah. You've been through the trials and tribulations of being a Raiders fan.
I sure have. It has. I became a Raider fan back 1999, so almost 20 plus years now of being a Raider fan, and it started off great. A lot of conference championships, and the tuck rule I thought would be one of the worst experiences as a Raider fan, and yeah, sure it was. But you know what? It's be nice to even have a playoff game where we could have a tuck game at this point because it's been a arduous road. being a Raider fan, and the one playoff game we didn't even have our quarterback there. So the whole hope was already kind of lost before we even took that snap against the Texans and Javion Clowney.
So tell me what you've seen so far in camp and through the preseason games. What are your thoughts so far going into the first game next Monday night?
So, yeah, we're facing Baltimore next game, and that's going to be a high-powered running offense, obviously. They're having injuries in their backfield. Justice Hill, he got hurt today. They were trying out Le'Veon Bell and Devontae Freeman in their backfield to kind of fill in for already losing J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, Gus Edwards is going to take a high level there, and Lamar's obviously been dealing with COVID problems, and they're trying to figure out the receiving core there in Baltimore. As for the Raiders, big addition today, officially adding KJ right there, and I think that's the thing you got to look at for the Raiders going into this season is it has been rough on the defensive side. They've ranked in the 30s last year in sacks and getting off on the third down and total yards. They just need to have a consistent defense, and Derek Carr and the rest of the team can really take this team to the next level. And I think they did a really good job. Number one, bringing in Gus Bradley, his history with the Legion of Boom, his history with the Jaguars when they made that conference championships and narrowly lost to the New England Patriots. And you bring in a veteran like KJ Wright, you have a veteran like Gerald McCoy, and in that secondary, I think this is the first time for the Raiders in a long time, definitely since Charles Woodson left, where you have a little bit more confidence of what they have in that secondary, led by a veteran like Casey Hayward there, and they have Trayvon Mullen, who's the former Clemson Tiger, who has been very consistent for them in the backfield. They drafted Trayvon Mooring. He's been very consistent back there. It does feel that Gus Edwards, and you could see it in some of the schemes, even though none of the starters really played, and talk about the standout too with Nate Hobbs at Illinois. He was fantastic, maybe the standout for the entire Raider organization and team during the preseason. You could see the defense had really taken a page compared to last year. I mean, you look at the one game in particular, the playoffs were on the line. It was dicey. They were going to make it, but they had that game against the Dolphins. They came down. They did what they needed to do. They got the touchdown, and then we have the crazy Fitz, no mask, turn sideways pass that cost the Raiders, and they go and get the field goal, and defense just costing them there. And the Chargers drive in the game, the Carr was hurt, and Mariota came in, costing them a drive, and you could go a handful of others. But those are two games that the defense definitely cost them games when the offense did their job. And just judging by the preseason so far and some of these other key additions that were brought in, it looks like Gus Bradley, who is, to me, the most valuable addition to this Raider team, but he's brought in the right pieces to this Raider defense.
Yeah, they're definitely shaping up to be a team that could do good things this year. Thinking we're probably going to be looking around 10 wins to make a playoff spot, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, and I think that's possible. Obviously, when you come in here and you talk as Raider fans, there's going to be a little bias there, and it's a tough division. It's one of the toughest divisions. I mean, the only one of the tougher divisions would be their NFC counterpart in the NFC West with the Seahawks and the Cards and the Rams and the Niners, and you have to deal with the Chiefs up there with Pat Mahomes. The Broncos, their defense is no joke. It's a very scary defense, but they have quarterback situations they're trying to figure out with. And it's a young Chargers team, and we don't know what they're to expect. So it's a tough division, but this team has gradually improved year after year under John Gruden, and the defense is the only thing that's really held them back, and it's kind of the ghost of Khalil Mack's pass that's kind of been holding them back, and it really feels like this year they have that opportunity to kind of break through the ceiling. And yeah, like you were saying, Jason, 10 wins, it feels like that's acceptable, but judging by what the media side of things says, they're not number one talking about the Gus Bradley addition at all, and really not giving the Raiders any chance to even sniff 10 wins. I've seen 6 and 5, and this is not a 5-6 win team. This is a much better team than that.
Now, I was listening to a radio call-in show last night, actually, on my way home from golfing in Calgary. I heard them talking about who's going to be really good this year, who's going to be really bad, who's going to be MVP. I actually heard Derek Carr's name mentioned a couple times in the league MVP talk. Do you think that's a possibility?
Look, I mean, he's not, even though, being a Carr fan, he's not my favorite to win MVP, but you look at what's around him, and there's no true number one receiver. It's going to be up for grabs. Ruggs is going to have to take a jump. I really like Brian Edwards. I think he has a chance to really make a big jump. It's a team that signed John Brown to $2.3 million, and he just got outworked by a lot of the receivers there. Carr has an opportunity, absolutely, I guess is what I'm trying to say long-windedly, is because the receiving side, there isn't a number one receiver there unless you have Waller as a one receiver, but he is a tight end. There's a low chance of Derek Carr getting the MVP, but we've seen in the past 2016 what he could do when he's dialed in. Carr has not been the problem for this Raider team. He has been a dialed-in quarterback. He's been a consistent quarterback, low interception rate. So, if the Raiders do end up getting that 10, 11 wins, and let's say they get second in the division, and obviously they're going to surprise a lot of people with what you're seeing from over-unders and record guess, yeah, he's absolutely could be up there in that possibility.
Yeah, and one of my favorite players last season was definitely Josh Jacobs. He's an explosive back, and I actually picked him as a dark horse to win MVP this season. We know that Carr is a pass. It's a passing game. The whole So I don't know how many touches Jacob's going to get in a game, but you never know. The ones he does get, he usually turns into something really good.
Well, he's another guy that's kind of been underrated this year. You've seen him in mock drafts, fantasy-wise, and even running backs overall. He's down to the top 20 all of a sudden. And this is the guy that's been a consistent 1,000-yard rusher in a season. And there's been a lot of talk of, bringing in Kenyon Drake and him taking away his yards. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I do think Jacobs is going to be a guy that's still going to get his carry, still going to get his touchdowns. And if you heard the way that Coach Gruden has talked about Kenyon Drake, they're going to use him a lot in the passing game too. And they used him like that at Alabama a lot too when he was there, and just happens to now that they drafted Alex Leatherwood, who helped block for both of them at Alabama and, help them in a little bit of the screen pass side of things. So that's going to open up that side of the game fantastically for both Jacobs and for Kenyon Drake. So I don't think the touches are going to get taken away from Jacobs as much as the conversation has really been.
Mm-hmm. So looking ahead at the schedule this year, as I'm sure you have, are you feeling pretty good about the schedule, or any hiccups you see?
It's definitely a middle of the pack schedule, right? You open up tough. This Ravens team, I'm actually lower on this Ravens team. They have a really tough schedule this year. The running backs, even the defense, I know it's a great defense and they have the history of a great defense, but losing Matt Judon, I think, really hurt them. We even talked about adding Yannick Ngakoue away from them and what he can do on the defensive side. And that's a player that Baltimore lost and the Raiders gained. It starts off relatively difficult for the Raiders with two tough games, one against Baltimore, then you go and then you travel to Pittsburgh, and we all know the rivalry between the Raiders and the Steelers, one of the great classic rivalries there, and I believe that opens the season in Heinz Field for the Steelers. So that'll be a tough game for them, but then you got games against the Chargers, Chicago, Denver, and Philly before your bye, all very winnable games. Potentially the Raiders could win all those games and be highly over 500. And you come back from your bye, you got the New York Giants. That's a possible win. Then you host the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football, I believe. And we know how close those games were last year. That's a potential game. You got Cincinnati. That's a win potentially. You host Dallas on Thanksgiving. You can win that. A Washington football game, Kansas City, Cleveland. That's probably the toughest stretch for them. And then you finish off with Denver, Indy, and the Chargers. And Indy, is not looking so hot right now. So it's a middle of the pack schedule. But if they break right for this team, things could definitely slide from the right way. Just even how you have seen kind of things roll through the preseason right now. And the preseason isn't the gauge of everything. But as you're seeing how teams are rolling, that Chicago game all of a sudden looks a little bit easier because of what the quarterback situation is there. Would we be facing Justin Fields there, or will it still be Andy Dalton there? What's the situation going to be in Philly? Is that going to be a Jalen Hurts situation, or is Gardner Minshew going to be in by then? Is Denver still going to be with Teddy Ballgame, or are they going to go to Drew Lock? They have a chance by their bye to really have it fall to them the right way. But it starts off relatively tough against some tough defenses overall. But one thing I always like to do too is look at the quarterbacks you're facing. So week one, it's tough. It's Lamar Jackson, who's not too far removed from being an MVP. But then you're facing Ben, and there's a lot of questions with Ben. Then you're facing Tua, a lot of questions with Tua, and then you're facing Justin Herbert, and everyone wants to crown Justin Herbert, but He's still a sophomore player. We'll see. Then we don't know the quarterback situation in Chicago, Denver, Philly. It's terrible in New York. Rookie quarterback in Cincinnati. We don't know where Dak is in Dallas, and it kind of falls that way. So it's a middle of the pack schedule that if things go the way the Raiders want, they can be better. That's why when I see people saying 4 wins, 5 wins max the Raiders, I'm like, I don't know how you're only getting 4 wins out of the schedule.
Yeah, exactly. Plus to throw into the mix, you have to also consider Cam Newton may end up in there somewhere. Who knows where he's going to go?
Yeah, exactly. So
what are your thoughts on that situation? What do you think? Where do you think he's going to end up?
Well, there's a lot of options there. My guess is that nothing will happen for this first week, and we'll just kind of hover and wait to see how. I mean, I think Houston's probably the number one option. They'll go with Todd Taylor this week and see how everything goes. Washington, obviously, you have the connection with Riviera and him, so that could happen. I'd keep an eye on the Giants. Where is Danny Dimes going to be at the bat, right? You're looking at, you have a potential of having a healthy Saquon Barkley at least play week 1. They're dealing with some injuries now. Their stud receiver, Tony from Florida, he's dealing with some injuries there. They signed Kenny Golladay to this massive contract. If Danny Dimes isn't doing what they want right away, do they bring in a name like Cam Newton? So that's a team I would look out for. Is that hasn't been talked to much, is the Giants, and how patient they're going to be with Daniel Jones there.
Yeah. All right. Some great insight there. Now, since this is our first time chatting, I got to ask you all the obvious questions.
Sure.
Favorite all-time Raider?
Tim Brown.
Tim Brown. Good answer.
Which is funny, Jason, because I came as a Raider fan. I kind of followed Jerry Rice as a kid. He was my favorite player, but then I found who Tim Brown was, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, this guy's great. You can go. There's so many good ones. Jack Tatum's obviously, Fred Biletnikoff. There's a lot of good ones, but Tim Brown, I think, was just such an underweighted receiver. It's probably between Timmy Brown and Charles Woodson, though.
Yeah. Woodson, definitely a big name there. One of my favorite players growing up, and I wasn't even a Raiders fan, was Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
Amazing player, and had he not got injured, he would have done some crazy things, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about the Monday Night Football touchdown when he runs into the crowd there, or when he plows. I think it's the same touchdown when he plows down Mark Gastineau. So there's definitely a lot of Bo highlights, and a whole generation kind of missing on what Bo Jackson was. With Bo knows this, Bo does this. It's kind of passed a whole generation by.
Yeah. I was actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because today I was watching the Calgary Stampeders game, and I was thinking of revisiting that whole Bo knows thing, except using Bo Levi Mitchell instead of Bo Jackson.
That's a good point. I mean, definitely the Stampeders need Bo to know stuff right now.
Yeah, unfortunately that turned ugly very quick there. So we're not talking about that.
No.
All right. Well, it was great having you on this week. And like I said, we're going to have you back every week to take a look at what the Raiders are doing and what they did the past week. So, we'll check you out next week.
Cheers. Thanks so much, Jason. Let's go Raiders.
All right. Thanks a lot, Josh.
Everyone is looking at me. Time is running and we're down by 3. Look inside yourself. What do you see? The pain is in your mind. No, nothing stops me. Everyone is looking at me. Heart is pounding and we're down by 3. Look inside yourself, I know what I see. Do you have the guts to do it for me? Gonna sweat, gonna work, we're gonna burn, it's gonna hurt, we're gonna fight, we're gonna score, we're gonna win. Not gonna choke.